G'day guys and welcome back to your English Aussie. FPL is back and I've got a killer lineup for you today where we'll talk through fixtures, when is a good time to wildcard, and some key players and some really interesting stats that you should know going forwards for the first 8 game weeks. Right here next to me is your roadmap, a quick peek at what we will be covering today. You don't want to miss out on some info which might give you an edge that you need for your FPL team this season. So strap on your boots and let's get into the video. So we're going to be kicking off with the fixture schedule. It is out now for FPL. These are the first 8 game weeks. I have put it into a fixture difficulty tracker based off my own analysis of last year's games of the championship and what I think are the best attacking and defensive fixtures. I think it's key to clear up that there are definitely different difficulties for both attacking and defensive fixtures. Obviously, FPL doesn't quite give you that analysis, so I've done it here for you. Looking over the first 8 game weeks of the season, I've tried to identify what the key teams are that do have some good fixtures and that we can start to look at in the upcoming slides where we go through the statistics and some interesting data that you might not be aware of. And you can see here, over those first sort of 6 to 8 game weeks, Chelsea have a really good start. Everton in their first 3 have some nice fixtures before getting a little bit more difficult. Fulham have a really nice first 5 game weeks. And Manchester City right there, the first 8 game weeks of the season is looking really nice for them. I think this Club World Cup is going to be really important to see what sort of teams Pep puts out, whether he's consistent with his team selection, and what we think the starting lineup is going to be for Man City, especially for those attacking players. We'll delve into the data on them and how they performed last season shortly. Tottenham, I think now with Thomas Frank as manager, may have some really nice attacking potential now. His teams often have very different tactical setups. It will be different to Ange Postecoglou, Spurs' team, probably with a little bit more defensive solidity. However, I do expect Spurs to still be as attackingly potent under Frank. West Ham is another really nice one. Sunderland on the first game week of the season. Jared Bowen in fantastic form at the back end of last season. He might be someone to look out for in game week 1. From the defensive side, we do have Aston Villa, who have finished the season really strong defensively, and other than Newcastle in game week 1, have a really good run of fixtures between 2 and 7. Brentford, again, without Thomas Frank, I'm not sure how much and who they'll have in and how well they will cope defensively, but definitely someone to look out for depending on who their new manager is. Chelsea, again, defensive fixtures as well as their attacking fixtures are quite nice over the first 5-6 game weeks. Nottingham Forest in there, playing both Burnley and Sunderland in the first 6 weeks. Obviously, a really strong defensive season for Nottingham Forest. It did tail away a little bit towards the end of the season, but we will go on to show you some really interesting things about the Nottingham Forest defenders on some later slides. Sunderland with some nice fixtures. However, if you do look at their sort of defensive solidity and their gameplay in the Championship, I'm not sure I would go for them, having come up to the Premier League. And West Ham also with some nice defensive fixtures along with their attacking fixture run. So if we then just move on to the next slide here, and just a reminder, if you are enjoying this video, please remember to give it a like, subscribe down below to the channel. Just a small channel trying to grow this season, so I'd really appreciate it if you guys could do that. Let's get straight back into the video, where we do have the fixture swings for this season. So I think a real clear one, and one where you can potentially look to use a wild card just early, from an early look at these fixtures, is between game weeks 12 and 13. And you can see here the fixtures for Liverpool, Manchester City, Newcastle, and also Bournemouth. And this is from a defensive standpoint. Just they go on a really nice run all the way through to game week 18, 19 into that sort of second half of the season, or second wildcard territory as well. If you don't have a lot of these players in, it might be nice to target and maybe go big on Liverpool and Man City, maybe Newcastle in there as well. Depending on how Bournemouth are going at this stage of the season, maybe you look into some of those players. I think something to bear in mind is the Liverpool fixtures in general are not particularly bad. I think those sort of first 3 game weeks for them are a little bit tricky. And then after that, they do go on quite a nice run. Similarly for Manchester City, they got a couple of tricky fixtures in there, but I would say they have both some attacking and defensive good fixture runs over the course of the season. Newcastle were an interesting one. They played Leeds and Wolves in the sort of first 4 fixtures. Wolves without a Mateus Cunha, bear in mind. And then they don't have the easiest fixture run over those first sort of 8 weeks before it sort of turns around for them in that second half, second quarter of the season from game week 13 onwards. So definitely they could be a team where you are looking to move into those players from game week 13 onwards. Moving on to the attacking fixture swings, and it does look really similar. We do also add in sort of Aston Villa swing over there. They do have a nice little swing between 12 and 17 alongside that sort of Liverpool and Manchester City and Bournemouth. So I do think that is a really interesting time to look at playing your wild card, to look at moving significant players around that time. Again, an initial look. I do have some other interesting thoughts on when you should play your wild card, but we will go into more detail once the player prices come out and the FPL game comes live. So moving on to a look back of the season and at those players' statistics, and keeping in mind those sort of teams that we are looking to target based off the first 6 to 8 game weeks. Here you can see the first 5 game weeks of the season, along with some of the players that I would consider. What we've got here is some really interesting statistics which show you the value of the players, which is one of the underutilized stats on FPL, which is essentially the points divided by the price. And I've included another one here that is sort of value per minutes played. So this is to factor into where players have been really valuable to their team, but maybe haven't played that many minutes. Particularly here, Mamouche is someone that comes to mind, given he came in midway through the season. And this is sort of allows him and his value to be more accurately judged. I've also got baseline bonus points per match here. And this is sort of an understanding for these players, excluding the goals and assists and clean sheets, what their baseline bonus is. So if they do, in comparison to their teammates, for example, Haaland and Mamouche here, if perhaps Mamouche scores a goal and Haaland scores a goal, because Mamouche's baseline bonus is regularly higher than Haaland's, you'd expect him to pick up more bonus points over that period of time. And this will become more evident when we move on to the defenders a little bit later, especially Nottingham Forest. You'll get to see some interesting stuff. So I think for the 7 million plus, these are sort of the expensive and premium attackers. Obviously, we can talk through who has a good season, but maybe we can do that once the prices drop later into the season. But here we're specifically looking at those players to target based off those first 5 fixtures. And I think Haaland and Mamouche stand out here, with Man City having a really nice first 5 fixtures from an attacking perspective. Definitely 2 guys to keep an eye on over the Club World Cup and see how they perform. Moving on to the mid-price strikers, and here 2 guys that really catch the eye with some nice fixtures are Delap, who has now moved to Chelsea. He had a really nice first game for Chelsea in the Club World Cup. Depending on who gets the minutes with him and Jackson, it might be something to keep your eye on going forwards and see how he's priced when game week 1 comes around. Rodrigo Muniz is an interesting one. I think him and Jimenez, the issue with those guys is they definitely share minutes. However, if you do look at Muniz and his sort of value per minutes played here, he is one of the highest of all the strikers. With only 943 minutes this season, he scored 8 goals and got 1 assist. Expected goal involvements per 90 at 0.58, also quite high for strikers. So yeah, it could be somebody that you could look into. Obviously, we talked about Raul again. You can see here, nice statistics. Value not quite as good as Muniz per minute, but over the course of the season, he obviously was valuable given that he played more minutes than Muniz. And he did manage to pick up the bonus, but mostly through the goals that he scored. And other interesting ones here would be the Everton guys. Obviously, the first 3 game weeks of the season are really nice for them. And you can see Ndiaye and Beto, who had some really nice finishes to the season. And Ndiaye in particular would be interesting to see if he is classified as a forward next season. He had a really nice baseline bonus, one of the highest, again, of all the forwards. And that's just because he was involved in a lot of that link-up play for Everton. One of the key guys that Moyes was trying to get on the ball higher up the pitch in those dangerous areas. And definitely someone that you could look out for next season as David Moyes potentially looks to make Everton a little bit more attacking. And one more shout out for you guys. If you are enjoying this video, remember to like down below, smash that subscribe button. You'll really help a small content creator like me grow. We're just a small channel at the moment, so I really appreciate every like and subscribe you can give on the channel. Thanks guys, let's get back to the video. Onto the midfielders, and these are the premium midfielders, 7.5 million and above. And I think the key ones to look at here, Jared Bowen against Sunderland in game week 1 just looks like a really nice fixture. Looking at Bowen's last sort of 4, 5, 6 game weeks of the season for West Ham, he was really exceptional. Put up 13 goals and 11 assists this season, despite not a particularly large expected goal involvement. However, he did pick this up late in the season, and a man in form is always a dangerous man, I would say. Cole Palmer, again, one of those guys who divides opinions, and definitely someone to look at over this Club World Cup run for Chelsea, what sort of form he's in, how Maresca manages him, what sort of positions he plays in there, and whether you think he will be valuable for those first 5 game weeks, which look really nice for Chelsea. And then Phil Foden, for me, very interested to see how much he plays for Man City this year. With the signings of Cherky and the Kevin De Bruyne leaving Manchester City, is he going to get more minutes this season? Is he going to move out to the right? What will happen with Phil Foden is something that I think is a very interesting one and one to keep an eye on, as he could be really nice for those first 4 fixtures. Moving on to the midfield, and this is sort of the mid-price midfielders between 5.5 and 7.4 million. I think here there's lots of really interesting stats that we can talk through prior to the season kicking off, and when the price points get refreshed, and these all become updated values. However, one that I think that you should just keep an eye on based on those first 5 game weeks is Madueke of Chelsea. I do also like Morgan Rogers here. I think other than that Newcastle fixture in game week 1, again, Aston Villa have some nice fixtures. However, I don't expect Morgan Rogers to be priced so kindly this year. I think he will potentially go up in price a little bit and not be as attractive an option as he was in the previous year. Moving on to the cheap midfielders, and as you can see here, Jacob Murphy really stands out for his season. I do expect with Newcastle's various formations, he might not play in as attacking an area as he has been before, potentially in a right wing-back role, maybe some more minutes from the bench, given that once Lewis Hall comes back, Livramento might go over to that right wing-back role. They've also got Trippier that can play there. So yeah, definitely could be some rotation risk for Jacob Murphy next season. Some really interesting guys that I got on here is Iwobi. I know I have not been particularly keen on Iwobi throughout the season. However, 9 goals, 6 assists, and the bonus is what's really interesting here for me. Picked up 16 bonus points for Fulham, with a reasonably high baseline bonus points for a midfielder, which sort of leads to show how he got to those 16 bonus points. Obviously involved in quite a lot of the action down that left wing for Fulham. And if he can get a little bit more involved in the goals and assists, he could be a nice, interesting punt for next season. Enzo, someone who I cannot imagine is going to be around 4.75 million next season. Chelsea with a great first 5 fixtures. If he is priced anywhere near there, he is a must-have in your fantasy team. On set pieces for Chelsea, really drives, gets into the box, scored another goal this week in the Club World Cup. Definitely someone that I would be looking at for Chelsea going forwards. Obviously, we've got Adama Traore in here, but he is rotation prone. Another guy that I just think is really interesting, maybe not for the first 5 weeks, but is Ahmad, and we'll definitely go on to talk about him more, his value per minute, his baseline bonus points, his bonus, even his expected goal involvements, all scream amazing. He's just got brilliant stats across the board here, and definitely someone you could look into next season. Onto the defenders, and we've got the sort of expensive defenders here. Obviously, you've got Gvardiol of Manchester City. Outside of this, we don't really have anybody from the teams that we are looking to target. Remember, those are Aston Villa, Fulham, Chelsea, Nottingham Forest, and West Ham. So we might skim through this section. I would say Gvardiol might not be as good an option next season. Now Manchester City have signed Aït-Nouri. I expect Aït-Nouri probably to fall into this section now he's moved to Manchester City, and will probably be priced at maybe 6 million plus next year. Into the sort of mid-price defenders, lots of interesting stuff to talk about here. I think one really interesting one are those Nottingham Forest defenders. And if you do look at sort of the baseline bonus points here, you can see that the baseline bonus per match, Murillo is at 10.36. And that is just because he breaks up the play so well. He attacks that first ball. He's involved in driving out from the back. He has some shots on target. And that is what has led to him getting most of the bonus points for Nottingham Forest when they've kept the clean sheets. You can see he's got 18 bonus points. So if you are looking for somebody who maybe is not as big a goal threat but is more likely to pick up the bonus when Nottingham Forest keep those clean sheets, I think he is a really nice option. Nico Williams is the other one who I think's value per minute is really nice. He's picked up some bonus points. He gets some assists. He's got a goal. He has the similar expected goal involvement as Milenkovic, and definitely someone that I would be looking at next season and at the beginning of those season for that Nottingham Forest defender slot. A couple of other picks on here is Wan-Bissaka of West Ham. Really nice end to the season. Picked up 6 assists and 2 goals in the season. Got forwards. Very attacking for West Ham. Really nice start to the season. If he is priced around that 4.5 million mark again next season, I think he could be a really nice option to start with. And then Mark Cucurella of Chelsea, maybe on the slight pricier side, but is someone with 5 goals and 2 assists, does have that attacking threat, does rack up the points, was in the top 5 for these sort of mid-price defender points. Again, some nice baseline bonus points. So when he does do something, he does tend to get a return. So yeah, very nice there for Chelsea. Into the cheap defenders, which is less than 4.5 million or below. And here you can see a couple of the Chelsea defenders actually in Shalabar and Colwell, also with some nice baseline bonus points. And Shalabar actually picked up quite a few bonus points when Chelsea did manage to keep those clean sheets, or when he did manage to score one of his 3 goals. And Shalabar did manage to pick up 11 bonus points. However, I think these were mostly in the cases where he did manage to pick up his goals for Chelsea, his 3 goals that he did score for them. Another interesting one for me is Matty Cash, given Aston Villa's nice fixtures after game week 1. Matty Cash obviously didn't show the sort of attacking talent that he has shown in previous seasons for Aston Villa. And I think with Luca Dean and Maatsen rotating and being just neither quite nailed in that side. Maybe Matty Cash provides a nice option into that Aston Villa back line as a fullback option. Also Konsa, who could be a nice option there for Aston Villa. Another guy just that we want to talk about that isn't highlighted here, but probably should be, is Sessegnon there down at the bottom of the screen for Fulham. Now, if Sessegnon does continue to be a defender in FPL for next season, and he gets some minutes on that left wing position for Fulham, then he is an absolute lock in the side. Fulham with some nice fixtures over those first sort of 5-6 game weeks, and definitely someone that I would be looking at into my team. And that rounds out what I've got for you here after the fixtures for FPL this week. I hope this was really interesting insights for you guys. I've got a lot more of this to come for the rest of the season. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're interested in this sort of content. I've put a lot of work into the channel this season, and I'm looking to give you guys some really interesting insights every game week now. Lots of different data, lots of analysis into the tactical views from managers, and of course the deadline stream where I will be reviewing your teams, giving you transfer recommendations, and advising you on how to win your mini leagues. That's been all from me. This has been your English Aussie. Have a great week, guys. Enjoy the break, and I will catch you when those FPL prices drop. Thanks, guys.